All right, guys, welcome back to Unlocked. I would say I'm really excited to be here today, but I'm not gonna lie to you, so I'm really not that excited, but it's okay. When I signed up for this, I signed up to show up once a week and give you everything I've got. And instead of not showing up today, I just figured I would show up how I am. Um, and I normally do a really good job at holding it all together and putting a smile on, looking the part. I always have. It's always been my life. And I'm still kind of doing it to this day. I think it's all that I know. But when you watch this episode, you'll be watching it on, let's see, I want to get the date right. When you're watching this episode, you'll be watching it on Tuesday, November 22nd. And that day, well, the 21st is when we go to court for sentencing. So 21st, 22nd, could take 2 days. Who knows? And obviously, for those that aren't familiar with the legal system, the sentencing has to happen first in order for you to file for an appeal, and we'll immediately be doing that. Once again, it's just really sad how our justice system works and how it continues to fail people time and time and time again. And because of that, I vow to be a voice for those who don't have a voice and to stand up for those who can't fight for themselves. And throughout this whole podcast journey, I want to find an organization that works with families who are impacted by our justice system and incarceration and all of those things, because it really, really does take a toll on the entire family, not just the people that it's happening to. So if you're watching this and you know what I'm talking about, my heart feels for you and I'm praying for you. I may not know your name, I may not know your story, but I know the feelings that you feel. And so I guess when you watch this, I'm probably going to be sitting in a courtroom. I'm not really sure what my future's going to look like. You see all these tabloid stories of all these different years thrown out there of what my parents are going to serve due to being convicted off of lies, which is really, really hard for me to explain, or maybe for you to even understand. And one thing I'm going to ask is, if you can't show up to my social channels and my podcast with a heart that is filled with grace and love and understanding, then I just kindly ask you to unfollow me and unsubscribe and just not show up for me, because I'm not in a place to be able to receive the hatred and the negative comments. And, I've had some on my social pages, and just to hear how hateful and heartless some people can be towards this situation is honestly heartbreaking. And I know what my parents have done and what they haven't done. And I'm going to stick by them and their innocence, and we're going to continue to fight and file for an appeal. But my heart also aches for the children of people who may be guilty of something. It's no one's place to go after them. It's no one's place to make someone feel less than and to just continue to tear someone down when they're hurting. Because let's be honest, those negative social media comments that you leave, it could be the last thing that someone reads. It's just what it is. Mental health is a real thing. Depression, anxiety, it's all a really real thing. And I speak on it because I know. I definitely suffer from high functioning depression. It's a real thing, and it's just really hard to sit here 4 days before I'm going to sit in a courtroom and put on a smile and try to be strong. And I don't know what my fate is, what my family's fate is. I know that the short term is going to be really painful and really difficult, and I may come home without both my parents. That's what the chances are. That's the likelihood, and that's my new normal. I come home Tuesday and I have custody of a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old. And we spend our first Thanksgiving not as a family. I've never been away from my family for holidays. So I just ask that you show up and kind of try to understand where I'm coming from, and to have some grace for me and my family, and to stop with the negative comments, because it hurts. And someone commented on my social media. Actually, I went on my mom's Instagram and turned off her comments because people were being extremely hateful. So before she could go and look at the comments, I turned them off. And I had already turned them off on my dad's Instagram because I helped to run that, so I had access to it. I didn't have access to my mom's, and I grabbed her phone, went and turned off her comments, and then people start commenting under my Instagram saying, just about how they should be able to take the heat and they should be able to take the negativity. And then you have some people that are like, why can't I comment under Todd's photos? Like, I've done nothing but support them. For the people that have supported us over the years, we're extremely grateful. And for the ones that have left comments of love and encouragement, that never goes unnoticed. But unfortunately, with the way that the human brain works, is you can have 10 positive comments and one negative one, and the negative one's the one that sticks. And so that's why I turned off the comments on their social pages, because their mental health is more important than someone else's opinions. And I'm doing all that I can do to try to save what's left of their mental health at the moment, mine, the younger kids. It's a really hard thing to process. And as I sit here, not sure of what our fate's going to be, I am going to sit here and still be vulnerable and honest with you guys and talk through it and keep you up to date with it, because I'm not going to give up fighting for my family. I'm just not going to do it. And I'm also not going to give up fighting for justice and for the right thing to be done. Because at the end of the day, if you've done something wrong, we all deserve to suffer the consequences for our actions. But the unfortunate part is there's a lot of times to where we suffer the consequences for other people's actions that were not our fault, that we weren't liable for, but somehow we end up being the ones to take the fall, which is really, really sad and disheartening. And I speak in another podcast. I filmed a podcast with my mom, but this one's going to come out before that one does. And I just speak about our justice system and how other countries have a way better setup. There are some, don't get me wrong, I am so grateful to live in the United States of America. I am. But there are areas that we lack, and there are other countries that just do it better. I spoke about like Norway and their justice system and their prison system, and how it's a place of, they've tried to convert it to be a place of comfort and a place of growth. And I think that's what we're lacking, our system lacks growth. The way that our system's set up, it just, I think, hinders people, and it creates for a lifetime of hurt, and it doesn't encourage growth. It just encourages punishment and hatred. And everyone makes mistakes. It doesn't mean you have to suffer from them forever. So I think that's something that I truly do want to fight for, and I want to hear your stories, and I want to hear how you've been impacted by it, and I want to hear about charities that speak about these things that I can go and visit with and talk to, and because I am, yeah, sure, I'm 25 years old, but I'm always going to be my parents' child. I'm always going to be a child, doesn't matter how old my parents get. So there is a part of me that is very vulnerable and that's hurt and that feels like that little kid. And I think the hardest part about the whole thing is I know who my parents are. And I may have a chance to stand up in court and tell those things. And obviously it's going to sound biased coming from a kid's perspective. But I do kind of want to take a second to explain who the parents are that raised me. And I think back like as a kid, and my parents struggled when we were first born, when my dad had his oldest two kids. They didn't graduate college. They barely had a high school degree. Well, my mom definitely had a high school degree. My dad barely made it. But it's because his personality is so out there and full of adventure and just always wanted to strive to be better and do better and create a different life for him and his kids. And he always wanted to get out of that small town. And you know, they didn't have money. They would redo a house and they would be washing dishes in their bathtub, and they worked. They are some of the hardest working people that I know. And they've always done the right thing and always have taught us to do the right thing even when it's hard. And when you mess up, admit to your faults and be better. And I just think as like a kid, it's kind of crazy when you're going through traumatic moments, your mind flashes back to being a child, and those little moments or moments of happiness and laughter. And there's never been a time in my life to where I haven't felt the safety of my parents. There's never been a time that I've had to wonder, is Dad coming home tonight? Where is he? Why isn't he answering? Is Mom going to be there to take me to the doctor? Is she going to celebrate the holidays? Is she going to cook dinner? I've never had to worry about where my parents were, if they were going to show up. And I think that's the hard part and I think there's a level of guilt too for myself of knowing that Chloe and Grayson aren't going to have that same feeling of, are Mom and Dad going to be home tonight? And I think that's the hardest part, is me trying to navigate how you teach to younger children who aren't fully developed that yet, and how to get them to understand the circumstances. And that's a really, really difficult thing. And so, like I said, I know so many people, more people than you could think of, have gone through these same feelings. And I'm open to the advice and the help because I don't know everything. We all do the best we can to get through each and every day. And, you know, right now is a really, really difficult moment for me, because I feel like the way that I operate is when something bad happens, I immediately go into fix-it mode, and I don't feel the emotions or feelings, and I just try to fix. And then I don't actually feel until the moments leading up to the negative event or whatever it may be. And that's kind of the place that I'm at now, is it's all crashing down. I'm all feeling it. I have the fear. I have been staying at my parents' house. It was like 2 a.m. the other night, and I'm just laying in bed, like, sobbing. And my dad, of course, being the dad that he is, I messaged him. He got out of bed, woke up, came upstairs, and just laid in bed with me and held me. And that goes back to, it doesn't matter how old you get, you still want your mom and dad for things, and there's still a level of comfort. And at 2 a.m., he's out of his bed, laying with me, holding me, trying to comfort me the best that he can. And right now, it's that weird process. The best way that I can describe it is like grieving the loss of parents who are still alive, which is a really weird thought process and feeling. And like I said, this is just for the short term. I mean, we file for an appeal, and by the grace of God, our truth wins. The truth wins. Not just our truth, but the truth wins. And our justice system kicks in, and the right thing happens. But until then, we have to feel the hurt. And, I think too about how society needs more people like my parents. And I don't just say that because they're my parents. Sure, they've made mistakes. I've been pissed off at them at times. But my mom is a literal angel. Like, shows up for anyone and everyone. And friends of ours, it's actually my agent, his wife was diagnosed with colon cancer in her 30s. And my mom, so she was diagnosed with colon cancer, and then last week she had these surgeries. My mom had surgery on her feet, couldn't really walk, but proceeded to go to the grocery store, get groceries, go home, make a full meal, and take it over to their house. And granted, no way, shape, or form am I trying to compare cancer to a foot surgery, because there's no comparison to it. I think my point is just showing that my mom rarely ever puts herself first. It's not who she is. She's constantly being a servant to others, and especially right now in her life, is allowing people to feel the love of Jesus through her, even when her life is falling apart. And for me, it's just such an inspiration, because that's who she is. And it's awesome I think it's just a testament, and it's a teaching moment for other people too. It's like, your life can suck, it can be falling apart, but it doesn't mean that you still can't show up for other people. And sometimes showing up for other people can help to heal you as well. So you're not just doing you're not just giving a gift to others, it could be a gift for yourself. And my mom, literally every horseback riding practice, horse show, baseball game, anything me and my brothers have done, she's always shown up. You've never had to question her, and she's always done the right thing. She's always been such a woman of faith and a great wife and mother and all of these things. And the sad part is like, that's what we're taking from society. That's like the woman who puts together backpacks for kids going through the foster care system, for a woman who fought breast cancer in her 30s and raised 5 children and is constantly living a life of Jesus, is someone that that's what we're robbing society of, which is really, really sad to me. And there's no bones about it. It's always been made that, like, my dad is my best friend and he and I are the closest. And we're the closest because of other reasons, of trauma and things that we've bonded over. And as a kid, you just connect differently with your parents. But the older I've gotten, the closer I've become with my mom. And the more I've realized that, like, if I can just be half of who she is, then I'm going to be great in life. And when it comes to my dad, I think the hardest part about that for me is he's always been the one I've gone to for the emotional things too. And I know I touched on this on my first episode of talking about my own battles with depression and where that's led me. And this whole experience is it's taking me to a really dark place. But my dad, I tried committing suicide as a teenager, and my dad was kind of like my therapist through it. I suffered from really bad depression, and I remember that next morning waking up and there being a devotional that my dad had gotten in his email from Joel Osteen. And that's why I speak so highly of Joel, because he kind of saved me. And the devotional was Romans 8:28, and it stated that through whatever hardships and adversities you go through, God's going to turn around and use it to your advantage. And it was literally like in the snap of a finger. I went from this anger towards God to, in my heart, saying, all right, God, you know what? Why not me? Like, what makes me any better to have to go through these things than anyone else? And that's also the hard part. It's growing up on TV. And, I did a pretty good job at hiding everything. No one ever knew. It never came out. My struggles of when I went off to college and depression and all these things, it never came out because I was great at hiding. I was great at hiding my emotions. But through it all, both my parents were always there, but Dad has always been more of a communicator. And I say that he saved me because he invested so much time and energy into me and making sure that I knew it was okay to feel and that I'm not the things that people say about me. And he really dug deep in helping me to identify my trauma and just letting me know that I'm not alone, no matter how alone I felt. And I think the hardest part in that is knowing that I have two siblings that may never get to have my dad to save them. And that's what, why do we take that away from society? Someone like that who was invested in the well-being of not only his kids but other people, and who always steps in to save, and who always steps in to fix it, and puts everyone before himself. And it's really, really difficult to be a child. Even though, yes, I'm an adult, I'm still their child. It's difficult to watch two of the greatest people I know go through what they're going through. But it also gives me the strength to not give up and to not, there's two kids that need unconditional love and support and just love and hugs more than anything right now. And that's what I vow to do. And it's just really, really sad and heartbreaking that this is what we have to go through. But I truly do believe that God's allowing us to go through this so that we can come out better in the end, and we will have a story to tell, and our story can hopefully help and save so many people. So as I sit here, it's really hard to not know what the future is going to be like. It's hard to not be filled with anxiety and depression, and there's only so much therapy can do. There's only so much, there's just only so much that can fix it. And, I try to stay positive because I have friends whose parents are dying right now. I have a friend whose dad's dying of brain cancer. My brother's fiance, Emmy, her dad has ALS and not sure how much longer he has. So I try to be grateful that that's not my parents and that I still have people to talk to. But I think this whole thing has taught me to love those around you even more. I've never been so grateful for a hug from my parents. It's always been normal to me. But now that's all I want to do when I'm at their house is lay in bed and hug them. And so I think if anything, this teaches you that life is so short, and don't hold grudges and forgive people. And I know it's really, really hard when people have wronged you and continue to wrong you, but everyone's hurting, and I feel like, I have so much anger in me right now. I do, and I try to work through it, but there's only so much you can do in a situation like this, and it's so hard to not be angry. But I also have a sense of gratitude for the lessons that I'm learning. I'm learning, first off, pride. Pride is what leads us all to downfall. And my pride has definitely led me to places to where I found myself having to humble myself more and more every day. Just when it comes to people showing up for me and helping me, and here's my roll of toilet paper. But just even I found myself having to humble myself and accept the help that people are so desperately wanting to give me. And sometimes the help that people want to give isn't necessarily, it may not be what you need in the moment, but I've learned that you have to learn how to accept it, and you have to learn that not everyone speaks your language and not everyone knows how you feel internally, but to not push the good people away. And on Tuesday, when you're watching this, I'm going to be either at home or I'm going to be sitting in a courtroom, but I do know that I have a whole group of friends who are going to show up for me and love me and my family, and those are the people that you need to surround yourself with, or the people that aren't just looking to benefit from you, but the people that truly love you and want to invest in you. And for that, I'm so, so grateful, and I hope that our tragedy can teach you something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know your struggle, but I do know that you're not alone. It may not be the same thing that we're going through, but hurt is hurt. And we don't have the right to compare our hurt to other people's, because our hard is our hard. And just like someone else's heart is the hardest thing they've ever dealt with. So I don't know. I felt like I just owed it to you guys to be open and honest and vulnerable, because I know that I'm not really showing up right now. I guess I am. I'm going to give myself the credit that I've worked for, because I'm showing up. I'm just showing up the best that I can at the moment. And it's not 100%. It's not, and I'm showing up differently because I'm so used to showing up, smiling and faking my way through things on the really hard days. But I think that's also what's maybe led to, some of my depression, is having to just fake my way through it. And that's just I guess that's the reality of it. And if anything, I want you to know that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be vulnerable and not put on a face 24/7. And, it's all just part of the waiting game. And I feel like right now God's teaching me patience, because the people in my life know patience is not my strongest attribute. I want things done now. And too, it may be like a society thing, because I feel like it could be a generational thing too. It's like we want things done now, whatever. I'm actually going to give a nod to my dad on that one, because he always wants to talk about generational whatever. Maybe right on that one. But I guess I'm just right now so filled with hope and for the future. And I don't know where I'm going to be when you guys watch this. I don't know what my life's going to look like. It's definitely going to look different, and it's going to get way worse before it gets better. And I just hope and pray that you guys don't read or don't believe everything you read, and don't even click on a tabloid, because that's all, they make money off of every single click. And there's going to be all these things put out there about the outcome of all of this. And let me just tell you, I will show up here and give you the truth. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever it is, I will show up and give you the truth, because frankly, it's my life, and I'm not going to be ashamed of my life and my family and the things that have been done against us. So I'll show up. I'll give you the truth. These tabloids are just looking for a click, and it's not reality. They're not going to give you the full truth. And everyone wants to talk about, 30 years, life, whatever, that they're going to get. Let's be real. The sad part about it is you have, like I've said, rapists, murderers, traffickers. You have all these awful people out here that get a slap on the wrist, that maybe get 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it may be. So that right there should tell you that this is way more than what it's been made out to be. It's about proving a point. It's about prosecutors that are trying to make a name for themselves and trying to play a game of whose is bigger. And I also, and that's the hard part, but you know what? I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of speaking negatively about these people, because sure, that's maybe how I deal with my anger, but if I've learned anything throughout this whole thing, it's my mom's taught me that we're going to pray for everyone. We're going to pray for the prosecutors. We're going to pray for the judge. We're going to pray for all of these people involved. And that was a really hard thing for me to grasp, because why do I want to pray for the people who have wronged us? Why? Like, to me, that sounds like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, let me just pray for the well-being of the people who prey on our misfortune. I don't get it. But that's my mama, and that's her heart. And I do believe that God will bless those who speak favorably in his name. And I don't want to pray for someone else's downfall or misfortune, and I'm not going to repay evil with evil. And that's what my mom's taught me. She's prays for everyone. And sometimes I'm like, Julie, like, ugh, and, ugh. But it's just who she is. And that's the life I want to live. And that's the example I want to leave. And I'm really, really trying. And this has just been a crappy week and day, and I really didn't want to show up today. I've got some content that I have to film for Sassy by Savannah. I've got new collections that have launched, and I was going to do it today, but honestly, I can barely show up. So I'm going to do it another day, and I think that's another thing, is we all just need to be patient with ourselves, and we need to give ourselves grace, and we need to show up however we can show up in the moment, and don't force yourself to show up any more than what you're capable of showing up. And if I could tell you anything, just hug each other a little more today. Love each other. Like, there's no better feeling than love, and there's no better feeling than family, and you'd really never know when your last moment's gonna be your last with someone. And, I look at the holidays, and they're gonna be really different this year. I mean, Thanksgiving, Christmas, it's gonna be really, really challenging and really different, and not what we're used to. But I know that it's not gonna be this way forever, and at least I'm blessed enough to know that I have parents who are semi-healthy. They're not dying from cancer. So at least there's not a time limit, maybe. I don't even know, because I don't even know what my future looks like. So I'm trying to sit here and convince myself and joke myself into believing like it's going to be positive, but who knows? I do know that I have to find strength, though, from God and my friends and my family and my siblings. And, I have to be a positive role model for Chloe and Grayson. And I have to show up. No matter how hard it gets, I've got to show up. And I hope you guys will show up with us and find the care and love and compassion in your hearts, and realize that, like, we're human too. We're going through stuff. We've all had our trials, and, I feel like I've endured a lot of hurt in my life, and I've just hid it really well. That's why it's so easy for everyone to say, how's it been to live such a perfect life? All these things. I haven't. I've just hit it really, really well. So I just hope that, I don't know. I hope you guys just take something from this. I hope you learn that it's okay to be vulnerable, and because I've really never been that vulnerable. I mean, I've really always been pretty hard-hearted because of just things I've gone through in my life, and suffering from depression and suicide attempts and things like that. It's been difficult. So I feel like I've closed myself off, and when in reality all it's really done is it's been at the detriment of me, and I no longer give the power to other people to tell me who I am and what I deserve. And I am just I feel like I'm having my breakdown to kind of remake myself and to figure out the woman that I am and what I deserve and the love that I want in my life. And for that, I'm grateful. So I'm trying to find a positive in all situations. But I just ask that you be kind. Please. Please be kind and loving and love everyone just a little extra, because you never know who needs it and your words matter. So please just comment below the video. Please, I would love to hear your story and maybe how you've been impacted by similar things and charities that I could reach out to and be a part of. And because this is a real thing, and I think it's really hard to tell people what you need and want, at least like it has been for me, because I think I pride myself on being my own savior, which kind of is funny because it spoke about pride and having to let it go. And honestly, pride is probably one of the most evil things, because it hinders you from being able to see the truth and to feel the truth. And I also feel like right now I'm in a time in my life to where the only people that have ever helped me are my parents. The only two people who have ever shown up without conditions and judgment are my parents. So part of me feels like asking other people for help will make me forget about all the times that my parents showed up for me and helped me. And, that's the really hard part, is I don't necessarily know how to ask people for help, and I'm afraid of asking for help and fear of my mind forgetting the people who helped me first. And that kind of goes back to grieving the loss of parents who are still alive, which is really a weird thought process. And I also think part of it is that I struggle with is feeling worthy of the help that's given to me. I don't know if part of that comes from the depression or the just people-pleasing mentality of being on TV and also having to perform to get noticed. And I don't know. It's a really difficult feeling to feel, and I hope that my lack of asking for help will maybe show my younger siblings that it's okay to ask for help. Because I don't feel like it's truly possible to be happy and fulfilled in your life by doing it all on your own. And that's kind of how I've lived my life. I don't think I've lived my life to know true happiness, because it's always been me, and I can do it on my own. And I think I've lived by that motto of I can do it on my own, so I don't give someone else the ability to hurt me by either underperforming or not doing what they said they would do. And that's why it's the only two people that have ever followed through and that have done what they said they would do are my parents. And to feel that you're losing the only two steady people in your life, it causes you to just turn even more into yourself and not really, and it is a very alone feeling, and it's not And that's a hard part too, is with friends and with people who love you, that try to be there for you and do for you. When you're constantly shutting people out, it's really hard I feel like it's hard for them to still stay. But I know I've been really lucky with kind of pushing people away and them still staying, which I have to learn to be better at that. But I think that's part of my coping mechanism in dealing with things, is I just isolate myself, and it's really hard. And I'm going to therapy, and I want to be better, and I want to get to a point to where I want to be better for myself. But right now, I'm just at a point of wanting to be better for Grayson and Chloe, and to show my parents that I have the strength to guide my younger siblings in the right direction. And, maybe it's going to take that for me to feel it for myself and to want to do it for myself. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people struggle with maybe living a life of not ever really feeling happy or fulfilled, or being able to live authentically. And it's something that I definitely am striving to do. It's just right now in this moment, it's hard, but I know that my motivation is anytime I see a smile on Chloe's face or Grayson's face, or I get a hug from one of them, or, Grayson last night when he came and slept in the bed with me. Like, it's love like that allows you to hang on a little bit longer. And I think we all need to allow ourselves to feel that a little more. Because we all need a little something to get us through each day. And everyone's heart is, like I said, the hardest thing you've ever dealt with. So we're all entitled to hurt. We're all entitled to feel what we feel, but we owe it to ourselves to not sit in it. And I think that's what I'm learning, is as hard as it is to not sit in it, I've got to get up. I've got to give myself a chance to have a successful day. I couldn't tell you the last time I've actually worked out, which used to be like my thing, my go-to. It would get me out of somewhat of a depression. Whatever feeling I was feeling, I'm just feeling down. But I think I've been in such a deep depression that I don't even have the motivation to do that. And I've definitely, I've lost weight. I'm not really eating. My anxiety and depression is so bad that I literally feel nauseous half the day. And anytime I go to put food in my body, and anytime, that's also a point that I want to prove, is it doesn't matter what someone posts on social media. It doesn't matter the smiles that you see. It can all be a lie, and that person can be struggling. So I'm a prime example of that, and your words really, really, really matter. They do. And there's so many positive comments and just words of wisdom that people leave under my post, but there's also some really hurtful ones, and unfortunately I can't unsee them. And I hope you guys remember that, because life sucks and it's hard enough as it is. So why make it harder on each other? When we can be an escape for how messy this world is, and we can provide laughter and love and hugs, and we're all different. We're all uniquely made. So embrace the differences and love each other, because life is so worth living and we need to make it worth living for people. And I just think that's the point I'm at in my life right now, is I'm completely broken, and I'm completely, there are people that are in my life that are making life worth living. And for that, I'm so grateful, and I want to be one of those people for someone. Like, I want to be that person for someone. And I just encourage you to not give up, and to know that it's not always going to be hard. And there's light at the end of the tunnel. And that just find a little bit of strength.